Perdiep.nl, jouw meest betrokken en praktische schrijfcoach.
Hallo allemaal, dit is het Schrijvershuis Interview met Saj Shah. Saj Shah was mijn eerste schrijver van al mijn meer dan 30 schrijvers. En hij heeft zijn boek uitgebracht, Joynetix, in december 2021. Welkom, Saj.
Thank you, Perdiep.
You were my first writer.
Yes.
You were my first writer, and it was not the first book, but it was, I think, the second or third book of the writers. But you were my first writer who started with me in a writer's coaching.
Well, can I just say you are my first writer's coach and my only writer's coach.
Thank you very much. But you have many achievements. I'm doing this in English because you are from London. You are from England. You don't speak Dutch, so I will explain it for the people. And we've met each other at the public speaking university in London, at a training about public speaking. But since then, you were a real hero for people because you have helped people with laughter, with joy, and actually you also made it with your book to the Amazon bestseller list this year, but also 2.5 million views of your TED Talk about Joynetix, about the content of your book, actually, about your story. And that's a really great accomplishment. You're my first writer, and you are also my first writer with a bestseller.
Yeah.
And that's a really honor for me. So tell me, what was the first moment we've talked about your book? You said to me, well, really, Perdiep, I want to write a book.
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment.
It's so vivid for me, Perdiep.
It was in 2020, I think.
That's right. And guess what? I was, so a good friend of mine organizes various treks. And I was on a trek with my family in the south coast of England by the beach. And if you remember, Perdiep, we used to have like these Saturday calls together.
And you were training for the Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, I was training for climbing Kilimanjaro. It was one of those sort of, bucket list moments. And I remember, we were in, I don't know what mile of the trek we were in, but it was the time for our video call. Yes. And I showed you the scene of the beach and the waters, and then we had a conversation, and I said, I'm experiencing joy right now. And there's lots of different elements of it. And I remember saying to you, one day, I'll write this down.
Yes.
It wasn't even like, it was, someday this will happen.
Yes.
Someday, someone.
Like a dream.
Like a dream.
Yes.
And I remember this so well. Perdiep.
Yes.
You said to me, well, why someday? Why not now?
Yes.
And, I had these excuses, and now they're too busy. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And all you said was, I'm going to support you.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, Perdiep's my friend. He's like, yes, I can get away with things with him. It's fine. Yeah, let's set this up. That was the stake in the ground where the book got created.
Yes.
It actually, from absolutely nothing, if you hadn't said now, and we're going to start, and then we started like every week together for the next few months, like that structure and accountability and framework that you created, that you provided, I don't know what I would be doing right now, and whether I'd even have a book if that wasn't there.
Thank you. It was a great honor to work with you, and it was fun also.
It was fun.
But why did you want to write the book?
You know what I like?
Why the dream?
Well, part of it was the biggest shift in my sort of life happened when I lost my father.
Yes.
And my father, for me, growing up, was joy. Like it was just a light of playfulness, humor, comedy, inspired so much fun and gameplay as I was kind of growing up. And then when I had my own kids, there was a sense of that around anyway. Like I that was me, and it's rawest, like playing games with my little two boys. And then at a certain point in life got really serious.
Yes.
Like hard work. Like I was in a corporate role. I was a lawyer, and lawyers can't be jokey and funny. Lawyers have to be serious because we're doing some serious work. And that was kind of the sense that I actually put joy as not right now. Right now is like hard.
Yes. Joy can be later.
Yeah, it can come later. When I've made the money and I've got the house and I've got the car and I've got my kids educated and all of the usual things that society kind of tell us what is success. I was in that kind of trap, so to speak. What got me out, and it was my own creation, by the way, my own little trap. And what got me out was the day that my father left. Suddenly there was a question. Oh, what's this all about? And it was only at his funeral that I got present to what his legacy was. His legacy wasn't, he put his sons through school, he had a house, he had a car, he was a pharmacist, he had money in the bank, and all. No, what his legacy was is he left people that he met in a happier, more joyful state after a conversation with him or after an interaction with him. People left feeling more joyful than they were or more happier than they were. And that was his presence. So his legacy, really, when he died, was that he inspired joy in people.
And that is what you wanted to do also.
That is what I wasn't doing.
That is what you wasn't doing.
At that point in life. What I was doing was striving for success, to show people that I am good enough, I'm successful enough, and all of those sort of external factors that pat on the back and say, hey, you did good, well done. And then what? And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And then I just realized, actually, I'd been living a little bit of my corporate life, making it all about me.
Yes.
And what my dad was about others and the contribution of making a brighter world, whether it's with family and all of that.
And the connection with everybody.
And that connection. And so when he died, that was kind of my question. Okay. My question was, what would a life coming from joy look like for me, and what impact would that be on others around me and the world at large? And so it's kind of almost like a little bit of a discovery and an adventure that happened. And I discovered for myself different strategies, different scientific methodologies, different sort of Eastern philosophies, Western medicine, Western ways and Western sciences of kind of fusing the power of getting back to joy internally, inherently, like, and so as I was kind of discovering all of those different things, I thought, wow, some of these are working. So I spoke to like my mother-in-law, my mom, my wife, my kids, and I started using some of these techniques and saying, hey, why don't you try this out and experiment? And they worked. They worked for them. So it was almost like I wasn't inventing anything new. What I was doing was actually using what's already out there, but making it accessible and making the science almost easy to do, because we've got the power in our own a body to actually transform your mindset and your body. And I started just writing notes for myself. Like, oh, this worked. This didn't work. What of this didn't work? And I had, like, by the end of it, I had probably about 3 books that I'd just written my own notes in. And that was the moment where I thought, oh, what if I was to give this out to people?
Yeah.
Now,
out in the world.
Some people will know it already, breathing practices, laughter, and things like that. But what I really wanted to do was to connect to, how does it take away some of these things that blocking joy? So how can you use breathing, or how can you use laughter, or how can you use a kind of connection with family and friends, and how can you use language and words to take the stops out of the way from you just coming out and experiencing joy? And that was kind of the strategy within the book. I created sort of the NRG practice, which is like notice where there is no joy. Don't do anything about it. Don't judge it. But then there's a reset technique of, like, how can you shift that area so that you do inject joy in that, and then how do you sustain it? So how do you generate and continuously generate the joy? And that kind of became the methodology that is across the book, and each chapter basically took a specific form that actually enables people to, by the end of the book, you've kind of built on each of the chapters, and you have an experience of just being joy out there that actually then impacts others. And I wanted to give that away, but there was a stop in me immediately, which was, people won't read it.
Yes.
I'm not a writer. I'm not good enough. What if it fails? What if it's not good enough? And then I can compare myself to, like, books that I like, amazing books, that I've read from authors that have been like these incredible bestsellers. And I just, like, I'm reading that and I'm thinking, wow, I can't write like that. And it was you, Perdiep, that said, you have a story to tell.
Yes.
And I think you said something like, which was kind of, initially it was like, whoa, but actually you were spot on. And you said, don't be selfish.
Yes. Don't keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep it to yourself. And what I got from that is, even if one person reads it and it's made a difference, then it's a worthwhile story to tell.
Of course, that is. It's but when you know it, there is one person, there will be 2 persons, and there will be 3, 4, and thousands, just like now. And the writing, it is a very personal story also. It's not only scientific and methodology, but it's also your personal story. How was that to write?
Yeah, it was.
You struggled with it. I know you struggled.
I think that was probably the biggest challenge that I had, because I love making a difference to other people, but then I also have this sort of, I used to have this sort of barrier of where people didn't I wouldn't be vulnerable.
Yes.
Right. I had to,
difficult for people.
And even in a corporate environment, like as a lawyer, I couldn't show weakness. I had to be this sort of like, yeah, I've got it all together. And that was the mask that I was wearing. And that mask started sort of coming into like day-to-day life as well. Yes. And eventually you can't tell the difference between who I really am and the mask.
Yes.
So then sharing like things that weren't really working in my life, or sharing where I was kind of like down or burnt out or stressed, that was a big deal to sort of open up and say, this is the reality of what I was facing. I had all of these different masks that I was showing the world, but what I was actually struggling with was stress, tiredness, overwhelm. I was resigned and I was miserable, and then putting on this sort of happy face.
Yes.
Right. And it didn't allow anyone in. And so that was the most challenging thing to get present to, and then actually share in a way that is vulnerable, authentic, and connects with people.
Yes. You were the first one I told, trust the paper and the paper will trust you.
Yes, it was brilliant.
How was it to trust the paper? Because the paper is the paper don't judge.
No.
The paper doesn't judge.
You're absolutely right, Perdiep. When you first said that to me, trust the paper, it was almost like I needed to, like, it was almost like I needed to create a relationship with the paper.
Yes.
Right? Like we'd have a relationship with people, but it was almost like I needed to create this relationship that the paper's got my back.
Yes.
And it's okay.
Yes.
But that even took a little, that was a bit of a challenge, because trusting the paper equated to, do I trust myself?
Yes. That's it. Yes.
How
did you do that?
Well, you know what, Perdiep? I think had I done it on my own, I would still be on chapter 5 writing.
I don't know.
Yeah, but look, I think having you by my side, listening, but then actually listening. See, your listening of me was so much greater than my trust of myself. And your trust in me was so much greater than my trust in myself, that actually it almost disappeared anything that was going on for me. And I kind of stepped into what you saw was possible.
Yes. But it's okay. It's good to, it's very great to motivate you, to inspire the writer, but it is within you. So you've done it. You did the writing.
Yeah.
So how did you become the writer? What was the feeling that triggered you to write it down and to do it, and to write every day or to write every week, and then to tell the story, to put it out?
Yeah. It was, again, kind of going back to my father's legacy.
Yes.
And getting present to my 2 children.
Yes.
You know, who were just entering their sort of teens at that time, to say, wow, what's the future that I want them to live into, like, for themselves? And that's a future where actually joy is their default. Not the stress and the burden and the things are wrong in life, but actually, like, seeing and experiencing joy all around. And for me, that was the thing that kind of kept it real, is like, what would it look like, that vision, that actually the default state for humanity,
yes,
on a day-to-day basis, from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you sleep, is actually joy being seen everywhere, with the odd bits of not joy, rather than the other way around.
Yes.
Which is what it looks like in the state of the world right now, is that things are broken, things are wrong, people are separate, people are fighting, and all of those sort of things. There's not a togetherness around that. And I saw joy as the glue to actually bring community and people, human beings, ultimately, regardless of kind of artificial lines of countries, or, you know, if you kind of span out into outer space in the space station, you don't see like a drawn out line. You just see, you know, land with human beings in it. Yeah. Okay, you know, and I was just like, what would that look like if there was just joy as the future of humanity?
Yes.
Beautiful. Now I don't know what that looks like, you know, and I'm on that kind of journey. The book was the start of uncovering it and kind of discovering it.
Yes.
And it was kind of the guide.
Yes.
The guide.
When you were starting to write, you were a lawyer, you were a pharmacist.
Yes.
How did you manage to write this book?
Yeah.
And how did it fit into your daily life of being a lawyer and pharmacist in a big pharmaceutical company? It's about health. I know it's about health.
Yeah, it was all about health. I mean, look, at the time, I was one of the sort of founding members of the big pharmaceutical companies' digital health department. So I'd kind of, you know, moved from being head of legal to now developing health solutions.
Yes.
And so I didn't separate it.
Okay.
See, that vision of inspiring joy, I brought that into my work life to now almost shift gears for myself to say, right, okay, well, how can I inspire joy in patients of our company that are dealing with life-threatening conditions like cancer?
Yes.
And so then that started opening up, like, you know, you're peeling an onion, it kind of started opening up of like, well, how can we support patients? Not just around drugs and medicines, but actually even before they get diagnosed with conditions, how could you actually do that? And it was a close personal friend of mine. I mean, you know, one of my best friends, my best man, who got diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's, and that was kind of the crux of it. You know, what could we do that could actually inspire joy in patients dealing with different conditions and their loved ones? So it was to answer your question, it was really, I didn't separate work and life. It was almost like it's life, and how do I bring joy into all of those areas?
It fits in your vision.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's not always easy to do because, you know, I had it for a long time. And, you know, one of the chapters in my book is exactly around this. I had it exactly as you said. It's like, it's a separate thing. I have to be a certain unjoyful person when I go into work to deliver something. And then I have to try and come back home and switch off the stressed individual and suddenly like be joy. Actually, that was my mentality of like separating things, but you can't do that. Yeah. You got to wake up and generate joy as the day, right? Because when you wake up, it's a brand new day.
Wherever you are.
Wherever you are. Wherever you are. Right? And even some of the practices that I saw that were sort of anchoring my state first thing in the morning. So I'd go to, like, used to wake up and look at my emails, and I used to work across the globe, but in the UK. So, sort of I had, a US team, and then I had a team in the East as well, time zone wise. So when I'd wake up, first thing I'd do is go through my work emails, and then suddenly I'm in the I'm in the work mode of like, oh my God, this email, oh my God, this, and that's the first thing that I'm experiencing is there's a state change of like, oh.
Yes.
I created the day as and guess what? That's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. So the little simple practices of like, you know, switch off technology, like actually wake up, look at your face in the mirror and make yourself smile. You know, little snippets, and suddenly it started working. As absurd as it sounded, it was like it started changing my state in the morning.
Yes.
So, you know, when you get something that, like when you start off energized and kind of joyful, it doesn't matter that there's a curveball that comes in. Whereas you kind of wake up wanting to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of plodding along the day, and then a curveball comes in. It's a lot worse as an experience.
Yes. Yes. You keep the bad vibes with you. You could keep the bad energy, and then you take it to bed also at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
look,
yeah. How was it to combine writing and your busy job? How did you find the time to write? At some point, you stopped your job. You stopped.
I did, and in fact, it was like it. I started writing just before the pandemic.
Yes.
You recall, right? And then we went into lockdown.
Yes.
And in lockdown, everything changed, right? Like life changed. And immediately what actually accelerated in lockdown was the slowing down and coming off the hamster wheel. I was suddenly more present to what I was writing about.
Yes.
And I found, like, I always had this complaint around there's not enough time.
Yes.
To do everything. And yet, that's the one commodity or one element that everyone has the same amount of.
Time.
It's just that I didn't have a system in place that brought joy to each of the things that I was doing. I was either procrastinating, worried, or so it was just kind of almost doing a time audit on myself, on my day. And it allowed me during lockdown, when we were just at home all the time. And so actually putting a structure in place that said, this is my dedicated time, first thing in the morning, and then coming back in the evening, really worked. And then the structure that you'd put in place, Perdiep, for me, which was each week, there's a task.
Yes.
Around the book.
Yes.
So it's kind of working on that task. You know, the first task that you gave me was just don't think about what's in the book, just write your back cover.
Yes.
Brilliant. Yeah. You know, you gave it to me for a week. It took me a month, right?
Yes, it did.
So so it was kind of putting utilizing the lockdown, having a structure in place, and actually scheduling in time, dedicated time.
Yes.
And having a weekly structure that broke it down, so it wasn't sort of, you know, this gigantic task of writing a book. It was actually breaking it down into smaller parts. And that was I think probably the best guidance, best coaching that you kind of gave, and the best framework that you gave, which was smaller chunks, bite-sized chunks. And then as it starts building, the bigger thing kind of comes into view. You can actually now start seeing an end.
Yes. Yes. And I remember also that you visualized your book.
I did. Yes. And yeah, I did. It was brilliant because It was I visualized my book, and you said, hey, take a picture of you holding your book.
Yes.
I remember initially thinking, yeah, is that really going to make a difference? Like, and then I got my son to take a picture of me holding someone else's book. Yes. on my steps. I've still got that picture. Yeah. And there's me holding my book, and I'd mocked up, you know, Joynetix and Saj Shah and a little image that meant a lot to me on the book. And, you know, I'd superimposed it on someone else's book. And that made a massive difference, because now I could sit in that, like, there was a picture of me holding my book.
It was there.
It was there. It was like a, you know, having a vision board.
Yes.
Ahead of me. And we did actually create a vision board as well. Yes. Remember, yes. Like I haven't quite met Amitabh Bachchan and Jim Carrey, yes. But it's in my vision board.
Yes. Yes, Jim Carrey and the Indian actor Amitabh Bachchan will be at your book presentation.
That's right.
But it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
And that's what I think it's important in the writing process, that it's fun.
Yes, definitely. And what I really acknowledge you for is you tapped into what you know of me. Like, you really got to know what drives me, what motivates me, what inspires me. And one element is fun, humor, playfulness. And guess what? You brought that distinct nature. You brought that for yourself in working with me, and it just made the whole process less significant, less serious, and just more playful, more fun, and non-judgmental.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? It is your story, so why judge?
Yeah, yes. I'm the biggest judge of my own story.
It's your story. So how can I tell you about it's wrong or right?
Yeah.
It's your story. Yeah. And you have your own vulnerabilities, you have your own flaws, but you also have your own winnings.
Yeah.
So that's your story. Be honest about it, be vulnerable about it, and then it will come out. And then people will see it as real, as authentic. And that's really important. And that, I think, you did in your book. And that's why people are reading it still.
I distinctly remember, thank you for just represencing that. There was this one moment, Perdiep, and I don't know if you remember it, but it was towards one of my chapters. It was towards, like, it was the sort of final stages of getting the book together.
Yes.
And that was the biggest hurdle that I experienced.
The last chapter.
It was the last mile. Now I've run marathons.
Yes. Yes.
And the toughest thing that most people will say, oh, it's the wall that you hit. So, you know, 26.2 miles or whatever, like the distance of a marathon. And most people will say you'll hit the wall around mile 18 or something like that. Yes, that's true. But the toughest part is you've done most of the marathon, and it's the last sort of, you know, last sort of half a mile or last 500 meters where your mind is saying, okay, you've proven it, like, that's enough, give up. And that last bit is the biggest struggle in the marathon, and it really takes something. And this is my own personal experience. That's what I felt in that kind of last bit of, like, it's coming. And that was the biggest breakthrough that I actually had, which is I was trying to be perfect.
Yes.
I was trying to be my view of a perfect author. I want to be like Eckhart Tolle, or, you know, Deepak Chopra, or Anthony Robbins, or, you know, all of these people who've done some incredible, you know, personal development books. And I wanted to, like, be them. And in that, writing as if I am them, I thought I was writing a perfect chapter. And then I send you a draft.
Yeah.
And then we have our meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I'm excited, thinking I've done it, I've nailed it, whatever. And you said something along the lines, and you would never say this in reality, but you kind of just said,
No.
didn't connect with that, but you said that wasn't you.
No.
And you saw it in the reading that wasn't me. And when you said that, it was like, oh my God, yeah. Like, be true to yourself.
Because we've talked about it in that session, and you said, but I'm not done. I'm not done. This is the last chapter, but I'm not done. I maybe have to make chapter 13 or 14 or 15 or 16. Maybe I have to rewrite everything because it's not good. Yeah. That was what you told me when you were writing that chapter. That's what the thoughts are, negative thoughts.
Yeah.
You were also, when you were done with your chapter, then you said, no, I won't issue it at the publisher, at the self-publisher, because I'm not done yet. You were so afraid to put it out, that you were so stressing that your writing was not good at that point.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
It was not a good chapter.
No, it was not a good chapter. And actually, when I thought of like, oh, this is a perfect chapter, actually where I was coming from was like that mask that I also had in corporate when I was most stressed underneath. The reality was I was stressed, but what I was showing was this fake sort of, you know, I'm this person, I'm this perfect like lawyer, or this perfect blah, 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 successful guy. And it was almost like I was trying to impress people.
Yes.
And that's what was coming through when you read it, and you kind of just said, I didn't connect with it, because who likes to read about a perfect person?
That's exactly. You already had written a book with all your personal stories, and then the last chapter you flipped it.
Yeah.
And that was not real. It was not authentic. And then we made some appointments about it, and made some plans that you have the chance to, in 1 or 2 weeks, you have the chance to rewrite every chapter every day, every chapter a day. And then you will get into it, and then you'll make some changes, not the whole text, but make some changes. And after that, it's done. And I think you did it in 2 weeks, I think.
Yes.
After that, it was done. It was done. And then you put it out at the self-publishing company.
Yes.
Press, and then you put it out, and then the cover was made, a beautiful cover.
Yes.
And how was the moment that you opened your first box with your book?
It was really moving and touching, not in the sense of oh, I've achieved yet another thing, tick the box. It was my final thanks and acknowledgement to my father. The stuff I didn't get to really share with him and say to him, having that book in my hand was, it connected me to my father.
Yes, beautiful moment.
Yeah.
How is it? Are you proud of your book?
Yes.
Very good. That's important.
Yeah.
Because when you're proud of your book, and when you're grateful to the work you've done for it, then you can put it out better.
Yeah.
And you did. Oh my God, after 3-4 months, you were the best TED Talk presenter of the world in March.
You know, like it's so funny because when those things start happening, immediately my identity says, no, this is like, no, this can't be, because I want to be right, that I'm not good enough, and all those sort of things, like those self-limiting beliefs.
You're
to fight this new reality, right?
Yes.
So it's trying to look for like just being safe, right? And as it's sort of picking up, and the same thing happened with the TED Talk as well. So it starts picking up, and then there's a kind of a fear that kind of comes in. It's not an excitement, but it's a fear of like, oh my God, there's going to be more eyes on me. There's more chances of failing now. and it's a bigger thing. And what got me, what stopped that process going down a disempowering route to what empowered me wasn't the numbers that were happening. So the numbers was like my ego was being satisfied, right? Like, yeah, great, look, Saj, yeah. But what I was actually getting was feedback from people. Someone in the US wrote to me and said that he'd lost his wife in COVID, and then one of his daughters, and reading the book had made an immense difference to get him, like made a difference for him in dealing with his grief. There were a lot of personal comments that I was getting, that it provided corporate staff, corporate employees, a voice to share, to be authentic with what they were dealing with. So suddenly I get the sense that, wow, it's starting to resonate with people. And it's giving something back, whether each of the practices, there are a lot of practices, by the way, in the book. Yes. And not everything, and I'm not saying everything's going to work for somebody, but it's in little bite-sized pieces that actually you can put into play at the moment of stress, or at the moment of tiredness, at the moment of overwhelm, and like really shift it. And that's the way I've kind of structured it. And it's an experiment. It's an experiment. We're seeing how to trigger joy like that.
Yes.
When it's missing.
Yes.
Hearing the stories that it was working, that provided the drive, the motivation to keep going.
Yes. Yes. You were in this was in 2022, the TED Talk in March.
Yes.
For one of the best TED Talks of the year of March in the world. And at the end of the year, you were in the top 10 of the best viewed TED Talks of the world. Did you ever imagine that this would be? Did you ever imagine that your message of joy after your book, that it will open up to the world?
No. Never would have imagined it. And the biggest difference is not operating like I'm doing it on my own. The biggest difference was I leaned into my friendships and my community.
Yes. Because your network, your own network, were your biggest ambassadors, I think.
100%. Look, Perdiep, like our connection, like, that started it all for me. Like, and it was only because you listened for what was behind what I was really saying, which was, I want to follow a passion and make a difference to people. And joy was the pathway for me.
Yes.
To give that away. And you listened, and we created that through the book. The TED Talk, I went through a similar cycle of, oh my God, I when the TED Talk actually came out, I didn't even tell my wife or my kids for 24 hours. It was almost like, I'm it's another thing of putting myself out there, and then kind of people say, oh, you know, that like wanting to look good, or like, you know, not feel like a failure or whatever was there, even with my own family. And then there was another friend that I kind of leaned on at that time, and he basically said, hey, look, you've got a window of opportunity. You've got an incredible community around you in Kenya, in the US, in your AstraZeneca world, and your pharmaceutical world, and all of those sort of things. Let them know. And that's all it was like, okay, I'll let them know. And suddenly, like, things started shaping up. My two sons at that time were very tech savvy, and they were kind of saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be here. And I'm like, oh no, that's time. But actually they were right. People needed to hear or know that this was there.
Of course, because why are you telling the story?
Exactly.
You want to be heard.
Yeah, I had this story of like, oh, someone somewhere will find it, and someone like Jay Shetty will pick it up, or Oprah will pick it up, and then it will go viral. I can't make it go viral.
You do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was I didn't do it on my own. Yes. Right? Just in that the book didn't come into fruition on my own. I wrote it, yes, but it was because of you, Perdiep. Like, you know, that like really, that actually having that community, having that friends to speak at TED came about.
Yes.
And you know, he kind of became this sort of guide of like, okay, what's stopping you, and all of those sort of things. And suddenly, like, that opens up. And then I had another friend that basically said, oh my God, you've got it out there. This is what you need to do. Because I had no clue what to do. And there are experts out there like yourself.
Yes.
That yes. I leaned into community.
Very good. And there is help. You asked.
There is help.
You
Absolutely.
For your book, but also for the publishing, but also for your TED Talk. Yeah. And now look, after 2 years, your book was in this year an Amazon bestseller on personal development and self-esteem, I think.
Yes.
Psychology.
Yes.
It was a bestseller. Your book is a bestseller, Saj. How is that? Not only the one person who
no,
it's thousands and thousands of persons are reading it.
Look, it's great having that sort of stamp, and immediately, like, the ego and the identity saying, yeah, but it's not a Times bestseller or a Wall Street Journal bestseller yet. And I'm also aware that there is that sort of ego drive to take it that way. Yes. And that what that does is it then detaches me with the main purpose of the book, which is to actually spread joy, expand joy in the world in a completely different way. And so, you know, it requires a practice to move away from making it about me to actually, this is just a gateway. Yeah. It's just a door into a whole world of discovery for myself and for others around what could a world look like where joy is that default. Yes.
And are you experiencing joy yourself with all these successes and all these positive reactions?
But I'll tell you something, right? Definitely. And at the same time, the stuff that is in the way of joy starts showing up more.
Okay. So, how come?
Yeah, so you know, I will look at like certain areas. So, you know, like I came from like a safe environment in a corporate where I didn't really have to think about month-to-month finances, for example, right? Like,
and then you
right? And then you become an entrepreneur in a startup technology business that you start to follow a passion. Immediately, where there is no joy isn't about finances, because I'm making money and I'm living. But what it is this conversation where there is no joy because there's like this sense of it's not enough, or I'm not doing enough, or there's not a freedom around the worry of money.
Yes.
And the breakthrough for me is the stuff that then starts showing up is the stories of there's more money going out than coming in.
Yes.
And what then gets forgotten is where I am and where I was.
Yes.
And being present, being grateful,
yes.
and bringing that into the mix, and it completely displaces the stress
yes.
of trying to make it, and it brings to like, oh my God, the joy. So I suppose what I'm discovering newly for myself in this journey is every new stage I get to,
yes,
it might be an elevation of joy to another level, but I'm at the bottom rung of learning.
Yes, you're still training your Joynetix.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I'm training my Joynetix. And it's brilliant that you say that, because the same habitual patterns come up when I'm a beginner versus being an expert.
Yes.
And what I would say is, I haven't mastered joy yet. That mastery comes from continuing to enjoy the process of learning and growing and learning and growing. And you know what? I think it's like joy for me is the journey, not a singular destination.
And was the writing also just the same learning curve?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Oh, yes.
You know, if you bring joy to that journey, it's the most smoothest, most exciting, most energizing, exhilarating process. You bring stress, self-limiting beliefs into it. It's never going to work attitude.
Life. It's like life.
It becomes so challenging, exactly like life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is. It is. Every author says that.
Yeah.
And okay, now you are an Amazon bestseller writer. You have 2.5 millions of your TED Talk, views of your TED Talk. Now you are an accomplished writer. You can call yourself an author. You have your own business in Joynetix.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, none of these things would have been created had it not been for writing a book.
Yes, it started with your book.
It started with the book, right? There was a story there. It resonated with people. And then the TEDx talk came along, and then that resonated with a number of other people. And then that led to sort of speaking engagements and writing articles, or being asked to write articles for business publications. And then that led to companies that I was connected with coming to me and saying, hey, look, we have a challenge here. There is no joy in our organization, and we want to spark creativity and playfulness and all of that. Can you come and help change or transform the culture?
And I believe it was not only in the UK.
No, it was, yeah, it was, you know, I was kind of working sort of globally around that. And that's a real passion of mine, which is like, you know, a large percentage, like if you see what's actually happening in the corporate world right now, burnout is a big deal.
Yes.
There's a mass exodus of people leaving jobs, right? So it's a real issue. And the fundamental thing, the source of all of that is the stress and the anxiety that, you know, the workplace kind of creates. And that's not like up to just the organization or the leaders of it. It's actually down to every person within the organization to actually choose a pathway to instill joy. Because we spend we spend most of our lives at work.
Yes.
And if it's not joyful, imagine what it's going to do to the rest of our lives.
Yes.
And that's the thing I wanted to kind of shift. But that's the statistic I'm really inspired to shift. That, you know, I have this sort of tagline: the future of work is joy fueled, rather than stress laden.
Yes. And we were joking around because about the title, Joynetix. It was very good. That is your methodology, and that makes you a joy king.
Yes, we had all of these things that we were coming together. I mean, just for your listeners as well, and you know, Joynetix is a play on words around joy and genetics, because the new science of genetics, epigenetics, I'm not going to go into the science of it, but it's basically that your internal thought processes, your internal dialogue, your self-limiting beliefs, your environment, what you ingest, both from a physical form and what you ingest from what thoughts and what meanings and what stories you're kind of creating, creates a whole genetic world that determines whether your cells are surrounded by stress hormones or joy hormones.
Yes.
And if your cells are surrounded by stress hormones, like, your genetics sort of shift to handle being able to be stressed all the time. And eventually that starts piling up and becoming chronic stress. And chronic stress, as we know now, 90% of all of the modern day diseases and health conditions in the world start as chronic stress. So what I wanted to do was interrupt those day-to-day stressful moments to trigger joy.
Yes.
And then there's no pile up.
Yes.
At the end of the day or at the end of the month. And then that starts shifting the entire sort of physiology. And so I put, you know, it's kind of, we come from joy as a child, like we are just joyful out there. We express ourselves, right? And if we see something, we say it. At a certain point in time, someone says, no, don't say that, don't say that. And then so we internalize that. And that internalization is what keeps the stress going.
Yes.
But as children, we just say it like, oh, that's smelly.
Yes.
I don't like that. Yeah. But then we just internalize that. And then we operate from that internal voice because we haven't actually shared it out there. And that impacts us at a physiological level. Yeah. And so putting joy and genetics together, it was kind of almost saying we need to evolve our genetics of joy.
Yes. Yes.
Like really rewire.
Yeah.
And we know, like, you know, brain science, neuroplasticity, we can rewire our brain. It's not fixed.
Yes. Yes.
And if we rewire our brain for joy, it might not be an immediate thing, but it, like training for, you know, if we're weightlifting, if you're training for a muscle, you know, building a muscle, you've got to lift the weights. You've got to practice with the weights to build the muscle. The moment that you stop, it gets back to its sort of unmuscular form, right? And it's the same around here, around the mindset, around joy, is you've got to practice seeing joy around you. You've got to practice noticing areas of your life where joy isn't present. And then really looking, not trying to fix it, not saying, joy isn't present here, let me take a holiday.
Yes.
That's happiness, that's an escape.
Yeah.
Right? But it's actually like, when I come back from the holiday, this situation is still going to be without joy. So let's look here. What is it? And that's really where the strategies in the book come out.
Yes, because your book is a self-help book.
Yes, it is. It is definitely.
People can practice. You can read it and you can practice it every day. Yeah. You have really practical things, tips and tricks to do every day, so that they can help themselves to create joy in their days, in their lives.
Definitely. And I wouldn't call it sort of exercises as such, but they're like practices that exercise the joy muscle.
Yes.
Wherever that sits.
Yes, wherever. And your book is for sale where?
It's all of the online bookstores.
Oh, in the Netherlands, I think. I saw also in the Netherlands.
Yes, that's right. Definitely, like the biggest online seller, of course, Amazon. It's available across the globe in your local sort of Amazon address as well. And then pretty much all of the online sort of booksellers have it. And in the US, you can get it in Barnes and Noble as well.
Okay. And you told me that this year you had your second print, I think, your new edition.
That's right. You know what? It was so the book came about during lockdown, and it was launched
December 2021, I think.
That's right.
For Christmas.
Yes, that's right. And then really there was an update that I like. There was one particular chapter around strengths and around kind of that purpose that really sort of built everything together. And I discovered new things in between me writing the book and new practice that I thought, you know what, I think the readers sort of deserve a new version of the book. So it was really sort of updating it, and kind of new science had come out as well. So it was kind of additive to like, oh yeah, this point now has scientific backing because there was a new study. So I just basically updated it to keep up with the science and technological sort of advances.
So when people order it now, they will get the
new version. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Before we end the interview, I want to ask you to help the people who wants to write a book. Yes. What is your number one tip to write your book?
The number one tip is get a writer's coach or someone who can hold you to account, like you, Perdiep.
Okay, thank you.
Number one tip, 100%. Like, without it, it will be a pipe. I'm speaking personally. It will be a pipe dream that will have come eventually, because I'm highly motivated and make things happen. However, it wouldn't come about with the velocity that it did having you by my side. So that's the number one tip.
Is there maybe another tip?
Yes. The number two tip is you will get writer's block.
Yes.
You will get a sense of I can't do this. Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough. Self-limiting beliefs will come in. You'll compare yourself. You will get, like what's the syndrome called?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. There you go. You will get write about imposter syndrome, and there you go. Like, it's so not present. But imposter syndrome, you will get all of those things coming up.
Yes.
Let them.
Yes.
And use that as the access to then getting true to who you are and yourself, and just trust the paper.
Trust the paper. Then the paper will trust you.
Yeah.
And seek for help when you need it.
Yeah, definitely.
And not wait too long, because you will struggle and struggle and struggle. Then it will be worse.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of people that I had in my network, in my community, that I didn't even think could support it. And the moment that you actually share, oh, I'm writing a book.
Yes, they will come out.
Start opening up. You were the first person that I shared with that I had this pipe dream of writing a book. Yes. And guess what? If I hadn't shared it, you wouldn't have said, right, we're going to make it happen right now. And then the rest is history.
Yes. That are beautiful words to end this interview with. Thank you very much, Saj. The book is Joynetix.
Thank you.
Your Joy Potential from Saj Shah. You can buy it everywhere where you want online. And also watch his TED Talk at YouTube. TED Talk Saj Shah, Joynetix. And please trigger your own joy every day with the help of the Joy King Saj Shah.
Oh,
thank you very much for this interview, Saj.
No, thank you, Perdiep. And like, you know how much I love you.
I love you too. Thank you very much. You are a very good friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Perdiep.
Droom jij ook over het schrijven van een boek? Deze mensen zijn je voorgegaan. Zij zijn allemaal schrijvers van het Schrijvershuis Perdiep.nl. Ik heb ze geholpen om in een aantal maanden hun boek te schrijven. Wil jij dat ook?